Hey everybody, Pastor Steve here. I'm so excited you joined me for this devotion and our Bible reading plan. Today we are in the book of Hebrews chapter 5. And as always, I encourage you to read the chapter and write in your own journal what God says to you before listening to the devotion. But anyway, chapter 5, and you'll remember that this is a book written to believers who came from a Jewish background and under persecution and other problems, they were contemplating abandoning Christianity and returning to Judaism. Well, the author describes the state of their spiritual life in pretty clear terms in this chapter. In chapter 5, verses 11 and 12, and there's one phrase in here in particular that spoke to my heart when I was reading this. Hebrews 5, verses 11 and 12. He's trying to explain more truth about Jesus to them. And he says, concerning him, concerning Jesus, we have much to say, and it is hard to explain since you have become dull of hearing. For though by this time you ought to be teachers, you have need again for someone to teach you the elementary principles of the oracles of God, and you have come to need milk and not solid food. The phrase, you have become dull of hearing, really jumped out at me. That is a word, the word dull. Dull means sluggish. It's also, the same word, by the way, is used in the next chapter, chapter 6, verse 12, so that you will not be sluggish. And it means to be sluggish or lazy or dull, blunt, like a knife that is blunt or an axe that is blunt and it doesn't cut well and therefore not very useful. So he's saying you're like a dull axe. You're like a sluggish, lazy, slothful Christian. You're not growing. And as I mentioned, not only were they contemplating returning to Judaism, but here they weren't making any progress at all in their faith. And we saw earlier in chapter 4 yesterday that the author is encouraging them to move forward, to be intentional and be diligent, to draw near to God and to hold fast their confession of faith. And I guess you could say their unwillingness to draw near to God, to be intentional about that, had led to them becoming spiritually weak, spiritually sluggish, spiritually dull, if you will. And that spiritual laziness and immaturity was having consequences in their life. One, they were more likely to abandon the faith and return to Judaism. If they had been drawing close to Jesus, they would not be as tempted to do that. Two, because they were spiritually inhelped, they weren't able to help anyone else in spiritual matters. He said in verse 12, you've been a follower of Jesus supposedly long enough that by now you should be able to help others, teach others, but you still need people to help you. People teach you because he says, you're still like this little baby. You can't even eat solid food yet. All these years have passed. And you're still not on solid food when it comes to spiritual things, the things of God, the things of the Scripture. You're still on the bottle. You're still on the breast. You're still drinking milk. You are like a infant. You may have been a supposed follower of Jesus 5 years, 10 years, but you're still acting like a baby spiritually. He goes on to say, I want to teach you more, but I can't because you're not ready to hear it. In other words, they were ignorant. One of the consequences of their spiritual empathy and lack of growth, their failure to intentionally draw near to Jesus, was they were ignorant, did not understand the truly deeper things, the even more important things, if you will, of a relationship with God. On and on we could go. So lack of growth has serious consequences. And let me just say that a failure to intentionally draw close to Jesus and to not grow could possibly indicate that you really aren't saved, that you really are not a follower of Jesus Christ, not a disciple. And so when I read passages like this, It causes me to redouble my commitment to Jesus, my love for Jesus, and to pray, Jesus, I want to keep growing. As long as my mind works and my mind is able to do it, my life, my heart, Jesus, I want to keep growing, to intentionally draw closer to you, to intentionally grow and never become spiritually sluggish. Because candidly, in the past, there have been seasons in my life where I became somewhat spiritually sluggish. I didn't fall into great sin, but I stopped growing. And I missed out on some of the blessings of God and the power of God that was available to me at that time. I don't want to ever have another season in my life where I am spiritually sluggish, dull, or lazy. I want to keep growing. Every day until the day I see Jesus, keep growing. And I pray that's how you feel as well. Hey, God bless you. I'll see you tomorrow.